Welcome back, everyone, for another short sermon. Today is Saturday, February 20th, 2021, and today I'm going to talk about the 6th commandment. Alright, and this verse can be found in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 13, and it's only 3 words long. Do not murder. That is the Holman's translation. Do not murder, period. Or it may say, do not kill, or thou shalt not. But this is the Holman's translation. Now, there is a difference between the words kill and murder, which I want to mention. Murder is wrong, alright, but killing is not always wrong, because murder is actually the killing of an innocent person. Innocent means the person is not guilty, so the person did nothing wrong, but he still got killed, and that is wrong. Usually this happens because there is an enemy. However, there have been cases in the Bible where there was a lot of killing going on, and the reason for this is because, well, the first murder took place in the book of Genesis, chapter 4. As we can see, this was when Cain, the oldest son, killed his brother Abel. Now, Abel was innocent. He did nothing wrong. He only killed him because he was jealous of him. As you can see, Cain offered an offering of fruit and produce out of his garden, but Abel offered his lambs, his livestock, his animals. So does this mean that God likes animals better than food? Well, this is not the meaning here. It matters about the heart. You see, Cain only offered his offering not as generously, but Abel did. Now, after Cain murdered his brother, God spoke to him and asked, "Where is your brother?" Okay, now you can imagine the guilt that Cain would have felt during this time. And Abel's blood, it cries out from the ground. So this is why there is murder still going on. Because if the first murder never happened, there would have been no more deaths. So God placed a mark on Cain so that anyone who sees him knows that there's something up about him. And he also said that whoever kills Cain will be cursed 7 times worse than him. Alright, so, and the Bible also says that if person B kills person A, then person B is going to be killed the same way he killed person A. For example, if someone shot someone by the gun and he died, what happens? That person who shot is going to be shot by a gun too. Okay? Because person B is going to be killed by person C, and then person C is going to be killed by person D, and so on. So the chain keeps going, and the only way to stop this is from a duel. When 2 people kill one another, and this is the only way that's going to stop the chain. Murders were happened by accident. Now, we see that most of the time when someone sins in the Old Testament, it was by accident, but it was still considered sin. If it was on purpose, then that would be very wrong, and there's probably no way he can be forgiven of it. But if it was an accident, then this is what happens. Some priest would have to take an animal, such as a lamb, or a ram, or a bull, or a goat, or whatever, and he would have to slaughter the animal. He would cut off its neck, and then blood would spill out. And then he would collect its blood in a basin, and then sprinkle the blood on the altar. Okay? So the person who did something wrong was supposed to look at that bull or animal that was being slaughtered and say, okay, this is what happens when you violate one of God's commandments. It is an unpleasant sight. Well, that lamb is a portrayal of Jesus Christ when he was the last and atoning sacrifice for all humanity. So no one has to offer animals anymore. They can just be forgiven. King David, he was a righteous king, and you probably assume that he went to heaven. But remember, he committed murder at one time with Uzal, the husband of Bathsheba. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because some people believe that if you commit murder, or if you commit adultery, or if you steal, or if you lie, etc., then you're not going to go to heaven. Well, then no one is going to go to heaven because everyone sinned. All of the 10 Commandments are just as important, and King David, he committed this act, and he still rested with his fathers. Now, there are consequences behind the acts. You can be forgiven, but there's always consequences. Here is the consequence that happened when King David committed murder and adultery. The prophet Nathan came to him, and he said that because of what you've done, the sword will always be with you. What this means is that the Israelites was going to continuously have battles with their enemies, and the sword was not going to leave them. They were always going to have those battles. Things were not going to be as peaceful as there was during the days of Solomon. They were, because he was the son of David. But this is why wars are still going on. We see contrast here between Abraham's 2 sons. We see Ishmael, and then we see Isaac, who came after Ishmael. And the descendants of Ishmael are at war against the people with the descendants of Isaac, the Israelites. Now, the sons of Isaac, Jacob and Esau, the sons of Israel, are at war against the sons of Esau. So they are both at contrast with each other, creating wars. And just recently, is it better to kill someone who is innocent or guilty? Because what happens? If you kill someone who is innocent, the guilt lays on you. But if you kill someone who is guilty, he goes to Shiloh. So either way, it's very bad. We see this an example from the Shakespeare's play Hamlet in Act 3. Hamlet was told by his father, or a ghost really, to kill Claudius, his uncle, who is now king because Claudius killed his father. Well, at his perfect opportunity, he had his sword out, and he found Claudius praying. And he thought, wait a minute, I cannot kill this person, because if I killed him, he would just go straight up to heaven. And then I would be guilty for this. So he laid down his sword, and he decided not to kill him at that moment. But then later on, Claudius gets up from his prayer and says, useless words never go to heaven. So when you ask for forgiveness, you're always supposed to mean it, and sometimes it is hard to really mean it. It is easy to say it. It is easier to say it than to do it, you know. So, but remember, between the Christians and the unbelievers, it is more common for the unbelievers to kill Christians and not the other way around, because that is not what Christians do. They obey the sixth commandment, you know? So it's not like we're supposed to get even with our enemies and say, oh look, I'm Christian and we're supposed to get rid of our enemies, we're going to kill them. No. If someone does that, then they're probably not Christians themselves. Because they're supposed to show love for one another, you know? And of course, when they annihilate the Jewish people, we see, hey, there is more unbelievers than there are Christians now, because they just annihilated them. But remember, they go straight up to heaven, so it's not a big deal for them. They're not even afraid of death. One verse in the Bible says that man can only kill the body. As long as it's not anything that will hurt someone, it's not really anything to worry about. Someone just fired you from your job. Well, they did not hurt you, so it's not a big deal. Okay? As long as it doesn't require pain, famine, or sickness, it's not a big deal because it does not affect the health of the human body. And people can only get killed once, so they only feel that intense pain once, and then all of a sudden they are in heaven. So in this case, this is all they can do. So the Christians have nothing to be afraid about, because they know that their eternity is in heaven. Now, before I end this short sermon, let me mention something that will bring up a transition for my next short sermon. Another form of murder is abortion. This became legal in America in the year 1973. The Supreme Court decided it was legal, which we know it is very unethical. And abortion is the same thing as murder because even though the person is younger than 0 months old, life begins at conception. Now, I'm not saying your birthday is when you got conceived, but no one knows that. Life begins at conception, so the baby inside the womb of the mother is still a person. Okay? It's not just part of her fetus or something, or tissue. It is an actual human being because it has its own soul and spirit breathed into him. Okay? So what happens is that when those doctors somehow, when they kill that innocent child, because the child is innocent, which leads to murder, and it became widespread. And just imagine what would happen if there was no such thing as abortion. You know, that every child that got aborted lived. Imagine how many more famous people we would have had, you know? Another reason why there was murder going on is because of racism and sexism and religious backgrounds, cultural differences, etc. But remember, we are all human beings. The last president in his inauguration, Donald Trump, said in his inauguration, there are black people, there are white people, but we all shed the same red blood. Okay? We all bleed the same. And that is another message that I want to share with you. Anyway, well, we're out of time for today. Come back next time for my 7th short sermon. In the meantime, see you later.